Okay. Hey, Phil, Fleet Authority. Today we're working on a 2000 Ford F450 ambulance.
Okay, let me get a good shot of this.
Okay, I don't think you can see the ambulance, but
That's where we're going to go back here so you can see the body. Alright, so we have an ambulance body. And what are you doing to this one?
I think it's a F350. It's an F350. Same difference. The difference is the F body has a hood and a long nose as opposed to a van E body where it'd be a short hood and the motor's tucked in different. So the problem this truck was having is it's pumping engine oil into the fuel tank, and after it runs a little while it shuts off. The problem is the oil's bypassing at each injector, getting forced into the fuel system, getting forced into the fuel tank, at the same time draining out the reservoir for the injection system, and then when that gets drained it shuts off because it doesn't have enough high pressure oil in the injection system to run the motor.
And what kind of diesel is
It's
this?
a 7.3 Powerstroke.
Powerstroke.
It's a turbocharged diesel built by International for Ford, years 2000. So I have this taken apart and broken down to kind of show what's going on and what we're doing. These are the diesel injectors. These four are from the passenger side, cylinders 1, 3, 5, and 7. I've already replaced the O-rings on injector 3 just to kind of show a difference.
Point them out.
These O-rings, orange, pink, and then there's a set here, cushion and O-ring.
And those are replaced. Those are new.
Those are new. This is a new set laid out here for injector 1. I'm going to do injector 1 for you on the camera. I'm going to show you the difference. This is why I did this. Maybe it's better looking on the white.
Oh, it's either or.
This is where the oil comes into the injector. There's an oil passage. It's sealed off by 2 O-rings. This is a better way to point. So you have high pressure oil here. It drives a plunger inside when the computer tells it to. This pressure can be as high as 3,000 psi, maybe even higher. This passage between these 2 O-rings is fuel. This generally runs in the 40 psi. It's just a supply. It keeps the injectors full of fuel, so when the computer tells it to inject, it has a full supply, a volume of fuel here. And it's forced down through out the nozzle here into the cylinder. It comes out as a spray. No pen. Anyway, this O-ring here, you can see, has just become hard and flat over time. So it allows this up to 3,000 psi oil to bleed over into the fuel side, which is running at a maximum, maybe 40 psi. So now with the new O-ring, you can see how it's pushed out. Once it's pressed in, this injector's pressed into its sleeve, this will be compressed nicely and seal that to keep the high pressure oil in its place and not contaminate the fuel.
You say compressed nicely when you put it back into the engine block?
When we put it down into the sleeve, it'll be pressed into the sleeve. The sleeve is very tight fitting here.
And should we show the sleeve of the engine?
I don't know if you can see it down in there or not.
Okay.
But you can even see how dark this has become?
Yes.
It's from oil contamination.
It doesn't need to be replaced?
No, the injectors are working fine.
Okay.
It's just bleeding over oil, so we're going to put new seals. I'm going to show you a comparison. This is number 8. It's a little different. You can see by the color of the solenoid. It's a little different because it's a quieter injector. It's where it's placed, it's near the driver, and Ford in its infinite wisdom decided they were going to make this quieter injector to help keep noise down in the cab. I don't know if it helps or not, but that's the plan. This one's been replaced or resealed. We pulled it out. I think it's been replaced because it's nice and clean. You see how nice and fat the seal is here? It's poking out.
These gaskets, yes.
It's a seal.
Seal.
It's an O-ring, actually.
O-ring, okay.
Here's the replacement.
Okay.
See, it's pink. This one's pink. This one's been replaced. I think the injector was replaced. I'm going to put new seals on it anyway because we pulled it out. So we're going to reseal. There's a cushion ring, an O-ring, an O-ring, an O-ring, and then a copper gasket that seals this to the cylinder. This is high compression here, that's why it's copper. There's an old one from number 3. So I'm going to take number 3 and put it back, and we're going to reseal number 1 here. Okay, so we're going to seal number 1. So I'm going to start. Here's the setup of seals. Here's the copper compression seal. The lower fuel O-ring. The middle separator O-ring. This is the culprit. This is what leaks. You can see how it's worn, become flat with age. The new seal. Let me lay these out.
Well, here's our part numbers. Let's get the part numbers.
This is a Victor kit.
Part number G.
G3340.
440. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Now, here's an interesting thing. In these instructions, now these kits are from Vietnam. I think I read that on one of the packages. Made in Vietnam. And I think it loses something in translation, and I'll make a point of that. Because in the instructions, it says the cushion O-ring is black and the sealing O-ring is blue. See here, O-ring blue. And they're exactly backwards. So this instruction is wrong, though the picture is correct. And I'll demonstrate as we go. First, we're going to start with the copper O-ring. Separate that from the injector. I'm going to try to. It's very important you make sure these come out of the cylinder or out of their tube. If you leave an old one down in and then put a new one onto the injector, now you've double sealed it, and it'll put all these things in the wrong. It'll move it that much, which is, I don't know, 40 thousandths. It'll put all these a little bit off, and you can make them subject to leak. So make sure you get that old O-ring out of the injector tube. These all came off with the injectors, so that was pretty easy. I'm going to go ahead and remove all these at once. Clean all the grooves. Try to do this without stabbing myself. These lower O-rings get really hard, and typically they break coming off. Yep, it broke. It's gone. Probably put grease on you. Next is a separator ring. There we go. Comes off. Next is the upper oil chamber O-ring. Okay, came off. Out he goes. Next is the cushion ring, and you'll see this one's already starting to deteriorate. See it separating? See little pieces of O-ring there.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
You'll see it when I get it laid out better. Yeah, you can see it
Little hairs.
falling
little
apart
piece.
as we go. There it is. There's some pieces of it. Now this is the backup ring. This groove is where the high pressure oil goes. So it's really important that these O-rings, top and bottom, do their job. So there's a lot of pressure. This upper one, they use a backup ring that fills the, you see it expands? You see that?
Yes.
It fills the tube so that the O-ring can't blow out past it. Then to protect the O-ring from this ridge, and I'll show you the damage that ridge does to the cushion ring. Can you see it there?
Yeah.
So much pressure is pushing it up in that little tiny hole, making a little dent here. If this was the sealing ring, it would. There's a good
Right.
shot. Okay, so this backup ring keeps the cushion ring in place. The cushion ring protects the sealing O-ring from the backup ring. So we got redundancies, you know, we got backup to the backup here to deal with this high pressure. Now this gets out of shape rolling it into place. I did that kind of fast. So we have these little markings that, so you know that it's back in its right shape. Kind of got to form it back to where it goes. And then make sure it goes nice and squarely where it's back in place. Okay? The next one that's going to get is the sealing O-ring. You see the difference, it's round.
You grease each one before you install?
Yeah, I grease each one. One that makes it go on here easier, plus it'll make it slide down into its tube. These have to compress really hard. It's kind of a thing to get these back into place once you put these seals on it. Okay, that seal's in place. He's happy. Now we're going to go to the separator ring. This one's very important, and this has been the problem. See, I've already done these while we were setting up. This is the old one.
He's not even pink anymore.
No, it wasn't pink from the factory.
Oh, I see.
The replacements are pink. But you see how formed it's become?
Well, flat instead of rounded.
It's just done.
Right.
So it can't keep the pressure between the two ports, two channels. It can't keep it separated, and that's its job. So now we'll put a new one on there. And you see how it kind of pokes out?
Right.
When we slide it in that sleeve will be all the way up tight. It'll be pushing that O-ring into that groove and making a nice seal. The next seal is the lower fuel O-ring, and this just keeps the fuel in its channel. Now I'm going to show you something. See how dark this is in the fuel channel? Let's look at a good injector. See how clean that is? That's the only fuel that's supposed to be in here. This one had oil bleeding over, and with the heat,
over time,
it turned it dark.
Discolored. Okay.
Doesn't really hurt it,
but it's an indicator.
It's an indicator, right? Exactly. So we know we're on the right path repairing this truck. Lower O-ring in place. He's nice. Now we'll do the copper compression ring. This keeps engine compression from blowing up into the injector, because that will burn up the injector. So this is a copper O-ring. I've cleaned this up, but for effect, I just brush all the carbon out of place. And if you're using a brush on these, use a nylon. I like nylon, or brass is probably okay. Don't use a steel brush. The steel will scratch the surfaces, and you don't want that. A little bit of grease. The grease will help hold it in place. It's got little tabs, so it kind of goes on there tight, but I've seen them come off. So I put a little grease on there, and it a little bit makes it kind of sticky. Hydraulic, a base hydraulic lock keeps it in place. Use a nice clean flat socket to tap them on there. That's it. He's happy. He's ready to go. There's a resealed injector, ready to be reinstalled.
This is Annette and Elijah at Fleet Authority. A little follow-up on Phil and his replacement of those O-rings. So right now Elijah is prepping. Go ahead, Elijah. Tell us what you're doing.
If you want to come over this way a little bit, that's where the injectors sit, right inside of there.
That round cylinder that's kind of gold or brass looking down in there?
Yeah, they sit right in those cylinders, and there's two hold-down bolts on there and there. And then there's a hold-down, injector hold-down up there. So I'm just cleaning out the cylinder walls right now to get all that soot and debris out of there, to make sure that the copper washers crush properly. and they sit nice and flat and seated, so
Okay.
we don't have any issues with that. And then here's my glow plug hole right up here that I had pulled out. The glow plugs will be up there, so.
And you guys are replacing those as well on this project?
Well, yeah, the glow plugs in the truck are actually still good, but we have to drain the fuel rail down still, so I'm going to leave the glow plugs out until the very end, right before I put the valve cover on, so we can hand turn the motor over to get all the fuel and oil that fell down on top, that's sitting in the piston right now, sitting on top of the piston, so we can get that out safely and be able to fire the truck up once the injectors are all done.
Okay, and where are these injectors? Are they over here on the table too?
Yeah, so
These are it?
This
Here?
is the passenger side, actually. So
Are these it?
will
Wait,
be-
real quick. Are these it
those are the glow plugs right here.
that you're going to replace as well?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
So those turned out to be all good. Phil tested those earlier with the battery jump box, so he was able to see them light up and
Oh, interesting. Okay. I
turn
think
red on the tips
All right.
to see there. And for passenger side, I've got 1, 3, 5, and 7 going on the passenger side, and then 2, 4, 6, and 8 will be on your driver's side.
And you're doing all 8?
Yes, we're doing all 8 injectors. So
Okay.
those have nice fat seals on them, and they're ready to go in.
All right, so he's replaced those, and you're prepping this interior surface. And once you've reinstalled one, we'll come back and video a little more.
Yeah, you want to have a good clean surface when you're doing injectors. So before you even start doing this job, you want to get a vacuum in there and get all the debris out in the valley, all in the valve covers, clean all your bolts, clean everything. You want as clean as workplace as possible doing these jobs.
Okay.
And
You said a vacuum. What kind of vacuum?
we use the shop vacuum.
Really? Like a shop vacuum?
Yeah.
To clean up?
Yeah, if you have a handheld, like, nozzle vacuum, for doing like the inside of your car or something, you can
Okay.
get in there and clean everything out.
All
You
right.
don't want any leaks in your valve covers.
All right, we'll be back. Thank you.
We're finished resealing these, and then they'll get reinstalled. If you like this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel.